This Zoom replay was originally streamed September 2020 and is brought to you in part through the generous support of the Tibet House US Menla membership community and viewers like you. To learn more, please visit our website at menla.org.
So I'm so excited to introduce HeatherAsh to all of you. She is the author of Warrior Goddess Training and her latest book, Warrior Heart Practice, which we'll be talking about tonight. HeatherAsh is a love revolutionary, and our mission in the world is to really support people in getting free and then giving back to our communities. So without further ado, we're excited to be here with you, HeatherAsh.
Thanks so much, Serena. Yay, and welcome everyone who's joining us live and on Facebook land and anyone who's watching the recording later. I'm so honored to be able to present through Menla and to share this inquiry practice called the Warrior Heart Practice that is really an exploration of how we can separate out the different aspects of ourself and of the way that we navigate the world to clean up all the aspects to bring them back together again. So let's take a moment to allow ourselves to get here, to get grounded, to get present before we step into the teaching. So if you can close your eyes and put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. So one hand chest, one hand low belly. And take a breath. And imagine with your next exhale that you can really let go of the rest of your day. And you can even make a sound with every exhale that you make. Just let go. You can maybe move your shoulders or move your hips a little bit. Settle in to this time and this place. And then I invite you to feel into what is one issue in your life right now. It might be for you personally, around work, around relationships, around your spiritual path, around your health. It might be an issue around the world and what's happening in the world right now. Maybe a challenge that you have had for many, many years, or one that's brand new. Just let yourself drop into what's one place of struggle or pain in your life right now. I just want to invite us to start by, when you call that thing in, whatever that struggle, whatever that pain is, notice for a moment what happens in your body. Without trying to change it or move away from it, just be in relationship with whatever that pain or challenge is in your life, and then what happens in your body. Do you feel tension in your chest or fluttering in your stomach? Do you feel a sense of calm about knowing you can handle it, or do you feel anxiety? And then also take a moment to ask yourself, what would be the opposite, or what is a place of peace in your life? What does a sense of calm, peace, openness? So just taking that issue or problem, just setting it aside for now, and then asking yourself, how do you want to feel? Where would you want to put your focus, your energy, your attention? What would that feel like in your body? So calling in that quality, whatever that quality is in your body. Might be calm, it might be openness, it might be love. And just let yourself feel that quality in your being. breathing into it, noticing where it is in your body, and really what it feels like rather than what you think about it. Beautiful. And taking another mindful breath into your full body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and be present here. So today we're going to be exploring how to support ourselves in moving from places of struggle, places of pain, places of confusion, into a sense of peace, openness, presence. And the Warrior Heart practice, to give a tiny bit of a background, I've been really blessed to study with Don Miguel Ruiz, who's the author of the Four Agreements for the last 25 years now, and continue to teach with the Ruiz family. And through a lot of study and exploration and working with students, I've been really watching where are the places that we are not able to stay present with ourselves, where are the places that we abandon ourselves, where are the places that we go into fear, where are the places that we go into drama, where our mind takes us into what I call disaster mind, which is worst case scenario, worrying about the past, worrying about the future. And so about 5 or 6 years ago, I was talking with a dear friend of mine, and he was telling me a story with a lot of passion about a place that he was suffering in a relationship and was really hurting around it. And I listened and nodded and, supported him. And about 2 days later, he told me the exact same story. And at that point, I started reflecting back to him. I was like, honey, that's actually not what happened. I was there, and this is what actually happened. And he would kind of shake himself and go, oh my God, you're right. I made up this whole story about what happened, but you're right. That isn't what happened. And he would feel better, and then he'd go off on his day. And about 3 days later, we had the exact same conversation of him being in pain and struggling. And this kept repeating. And one day I realized how difficult it is for us as humans sometimes, how we get snagged by particular stories, particular experiences, and we keep going back to the snag. We can't get past it, even if it's not true, or even if it's a place of suffering. And so with my friend, I opened up and I said, is there anything I can do to help my friend to find the truth, to step out of his own pain? And this process dropped into my being, fully formed. And it's an inquiry practice. So for those of you that have done inquiry, that have done mindfulness practice, or that have done awareness practice, it'll be familiar type of going within. And the purpose is really to help us get back into the truth, to help us get back into our heart. It is a practice that's based on the 4 chambers of the heart, and that takes us through a really simple process to unwind the stories, the emotion, so we can get to the truth and our intent. And I think about it this way: with your heart, you would never say, I like my left ventricle the best. That's the best part of my heart. The rest of it, I'm not so thrilled about. Okay? You know that in order for your heart to function properly, that you need all 4 chambers to be working together. And it's the same thing with the warrior heart practice. We need all 4 parts, all of the chambers working together. So there's not a good chamber or a bad chamber. There's different aspects. Okay, so what we'll do tonight is I'll share the overview of the warrior heart practice, and then we will do a practice together. So I'll actually walk you through the practice. We'll walk it through together, and then we'll open it up for questions. Okay. And as we're navigating, as we're working with the warrior heart practice, and as I'm explaining it, open to whatever the struggle or the pain that you brought in the beginning, that when I invited you, what's the place that you're struggling with? Just feel how you can hold that through the description, and then know we're going to be walking through it together. So sometimes when you do an overview of something, it doesn't totally make sense until you actually get to practice it. So stay with me as we open to this practice. Okay. What I always say is this: when we're in a place of calm, centered presence, we're simply here. There's nothing else that we're trying to do or be or figure out. We simply are. And that's our natural state. We're working to get back to that natural state. And a little bit about what I call the Toltec cosmology. I'm going to give a really teeny intro to this piece, but it helps us to understand the 4 chambers and the warrior heart practice. So the Toltec were a group of people that came together in South and Central Mexico to study perception. They were very curious about how do we as humans create our reality. They considered themselves artists of the spirit and also scientists. They were very interested in energy. And I grew up in Asia, and through learning a lot about Buddhism as a child and as an adult, when I started studying Toltec wisdom, I was really surprised at how similar Toltec wisdom is with Buddhist philosophy. So there's a lot of similarities with a very strong emphasis on awareness, okay, as the foundation. So Toltec cosmology, which is the big picture view of how did we get here, is that each of us has what we call a big soul and a little soul. Your big soul is the enduring trying to think of the right word, infinite, that's we go, all possibility connected to God, life, creation. Okay, so the big part of the big soul part of yourself is enduring over time. And it knows that it's part of something much, much larger. It's your connection to divinity. Okay, that direct connection to divinity, big soul. Little soul is the part of us that is personality, ego, separate. So it feels separate. And when we're born, that little soul part of us comes online, and it's connected to what we call the dream of the planet, which is the way all humans are dreaming right now. And if you look around the world, it's super evident right now, humans right now have a tendency to dream out of fear and scarcity. And so we get a dose of that. The little soul gets this dose of fear and this sense of separation. When we're really young, your big soul and your little soul are still connected. They're talking to each other. And that's why if you look at kids that are 2 and younger, usually before they've learned language, before they've started to be domesticated, they are wide open, excited, in awe, in love, happy, joyful, curious. And that's the connection of the little soul with the big soul. There's this deep connection. And it's almost like the little soul's a little kid holding the big soul's hand. And the big soul is like, I've got you. It's safe. The world's amazing and wonderful. Let's go explore it. And that little soul part of us, that ego personality part of us, feels held and safe. But what happens very young is that we start to separate from the big soul. Big soul doesn't go anywhere, but the little soul starts learning the rules and the agreements and who it should be and who it's supposed to be. And to fit in, to be part of the family, in response to trauma, there's a lot of reasons. The little soul starts believing it has to figure everything else out. It loses connection to the big soul. And instead, its attention starts to go to the rules and agreements. And we all have a lot of rules and agreements that we learn. And it's interesting. I've heard stories of when the Dalai Lama first came to the United States. He was really surprised to learn that many Westerners struggle with self-worth. And that's a kind of a common thing in the United States. and I think in much of the Western world, is that we struggle with self-worth. And the response from the Tibetans at the time was like, why, how could you not have self-worth? You're in a human body. What a huge gift that is. Of course you're worthy. So one of the agreements that we learned really young, for example, is in order to be worthy, I have to do for others. I have to be seen in a particular way. I have to be a good person. Like there's all these things that we learn. So those agreements, those beliefs that we start to create, many of them that we have, we don't even realize that we have. And this is a really important part. The agreements are like an iceberg, and we see the tip of the iceberg, but underneath there's a lot of agreements that we all are carrying that we don't even realize that we're carrying. Those are the ones that affect us the most. Okay, so that's what the warrior heart practice helps us do, is clean up those old agreements and patterns that we have, many of which are not even ours. Okay, we've taken on from our ancestors, from our society, from our culture, from the dream. Okay, so our work is to clean up the agreements and beliefs that are between the little soul and the big soul. So there's all of these agreements that get made that the little soul gets hooked to. And as we clean those agreements and beliefs up, as we start to make more space, we reconnect with that sense of connection to creator, life, the divine. We come back into relationship with our own sense of peace, our own sense of calm, our own sense of joy that comes from the inside. The little soul is very geared to, how do I get those things from the outside? And what we're doing is teaching ourselves, no, it's already within you. That big soul knowing is already within us. Okay, so we'll refer back to this as we start learning the warrior heart practice, but that's the context, is we're learning to bridge little soul and big soul. And there's nothing wrong with your little soul. This is another important piece. Your little soul is important. Okay, that part of you that's separate is important. There's a reason you're in a physical body with a specific personality. That's your light and your gift to bring into the world, is to let that big soul shine through your little soul into the world. So we're cleaning things up. Whenever you get into a place where you're confused, you feel stuck, you feel triggered, you are scared, like anything that is arising that's taking you out of your own sense of center and presence, is something that you can bring to the warrior heart practice. And we've been, my community's been doing this practice for years now. We found that it's effective with health issues, with relationship, with internal stuff that we're navigating. It's an incredible practice, again, to help us separate out the pieces so we can clean them up and bring them back together again. So the 4 aspects of the warrior heart practice, the 4 chambers, are, the first one is the feeling chamber. The second is the story chamber. The third is the truth chamber. And the 4th is the intent chamber. And then a little bit, I'll share with you a download about all these, but I want to give you all the info first, and then we'll give you the download. Okay, so feeling chamber, story chamber, truth chamber, intent chamber. Okay. We start in the feeling chamber. And this is what makes this practice different from other inquiry practices that I've studied, is that often we start with trying to figure out with our mind what's going on. And in the warrior heart practice, you start with one question. What am I feeling? What am I feeling, separate from the story? So this is a practice to get us into the body. What is happening in my body? And when you're in the feeling chamber, and I literally think about is that you're going to step into the feeling chamber and ask, what am I feeling right now? What's going on in my body? What's going on with my emotional being? And that you're not trying to understand it, intellectualize it, figure out why you feel that way. There's one thing to do: feel. Now, this is not easy. This is another thing that's very challenging for Westerners often, is that we tend to want to bypass our emotional body. We do what we can call exiting the emotional body. And we can exit the emotional body by addictions, intellectualizing, not dealing with stuff, spiritual bypass, pretending everything's fine, cleaning, meditating. You can actually use anything to exit your emotional body. But real healing happens when you learn to let yourself have the feelings and move through them. So the first step, what am I feeling? Not, what do I wish I was feeling? What should I be feeling? What do I wish what's going on now? What am I feeling now? And then where is it in the body? Belly, is it in the chest? Is it in my hands? So you simply be with whatever you're feeling. And I liken it to if you were with someone who was ill, someone who was very sick, or maybe who is even dying. What's the quality of energy you would bring to their bedside? So if you can imagine holding that person's hand with all of your love and compassion, you would bring that sense of stillness and presence and curiosity of how can you be in service. And that's the quality we want to bring to our emotional bodies. Okay, to our emotional body is quiet presence. What are you feeling, sweetheart? What's going on? Okay. Once you sit with the feeling, again, you're not trying to do anything with it, but just notice, be with it in your body. Then we move to the story chamber. And the question of the story chamber is, what's the story that I'm telling myself? What am I thinking? So we go into now the story, and you give yourself permission to go into the story, to go into whatever's happening in your mind, and to be willing to dig to see what's actually going on. So I think about the story chamber. When you step into the story chamber and you ask yourself, what's the story? What often happens is we have the surface story. I'm mad because that person cut me off in traffic and pissed me off. Okay, surface. The story is people are so inconsiderate, how dare they? Or I'm upset about Facebook and how people are always arguing. Okay. And then the story is humans should be different. What's wrong with humans? Okay, so then we start going into deeper stories. So often there's a surface story that we tell ourselves that we then justify the emotion. Well, of course I'm feeling pissed off. I'm right. But if you're willing to be with yourself and keep exploring and drop into what's under that story, what other story am I holding? There's going to be a lot of information to help you untangle the ways often the emotion and the story get tied together. So we're working to separate them out, separate the feelings from the story, so that we can just get curious about what am I telling myself. And the story's like you're an archaeologist. You wouldn't go to an archaeological dig and find a shard on the surface and go, I found what I'm looking for. You would know, okay, evidence something else is deeper. Let's start digging. And that's how I'd like you to think about the story chamber, is that you're going in willing to uncover what else is there. And so often the stories that we're telling ourselves appear to be about what's happening right now in the world. But I can guarantee almost 95% of the time or more, they're about something deeper. It's a deeper agreement that we're holding. Okay, childhood, or a belief around how the world should be that's causing our suffering. Okay, and again, I'll share a story of my own life, and then we'll work through the practice together. Once you have a sense of what the story is, and not just the surface, but also the roots, the deeper story that you're telling yourself. And when you're in the story chamber, give yourself permission to be messy. It's messy in there. That's just the truth. So this isn't a place to try and make the story nicer, because again, you want to unearth what's there. Third chamber, truth. What is true? Now, we can have a whole philosophical discussion about what the truth is, and absolute truth versus subjective truth. What I'd like you to focus on is, what do I know is true here? What do I know is true here? Okay. Our temptation is to pull the story into the truth chamber, to write a better story, and then say it's the truth. So I want you to really resist writing better stories and calling them the truth. You're working to drop into what is true. And there's two ways I've seen that you can know something's true. One, you'll feel it in your body. There's a relaxation, there's an opening, there's a sense of a bell ringing when you feel the truth. When you name the truth, your body will respond. It may take you a while to find that. If you've been a really good storyteller, and some of us are really good storytellers, it may be more difficult to find that sense in your body, but you can. Okay. The second is that the truth is always really simple. One sentence. It's one sentence with a period at the end. So if you find yourself saying, the truth is this, and then da 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 da, all of the anything that's after the first statement is probably all story. Okay, that you're back in the story chamber. So just watch that. Feeling sense in the body, simple, super simple. Okay. And then fourth chamber. So you're going to gather what you see as true. And one thing, if you can't find the truth or you don't know what the truth is, I always say there's always one thing that is true. I am breathing. Everyone take a breath. You can always start there. I am breathing. That is always going to be true. Okay, so start there. I am breathing. Nice. And then the final chamber, this isn't the end of the process, this is just the last chamber, is your intent. And your intent is your focus. It's where you're willing to commit putting your energy going forward. Because just because you've started to untangle your emotions from your story and your story from the truth, doesn't mean that suddenly magically everything's fine and the situation dissolves. You're still going to have to deal with the situation in most cases because it's involving someone else or a long-time pattern in your own life or a work situation. So your intent is your guide. It's going to be your North Pole or your North Star. North Pole works too. But it's that focus of I commit to putting my energy towards this quality that I want to embody. I'm going to say that again. I commit to putting my energy towards this quality that I want to embody. You don't need to know how you're going to embody it. You just need to commit to it. So you're creating that line of energy. So that quality might be integrity. It might be love. It might be peace. It might be presence. It might be play. It can be anything. Okay? What's the intent? One word. So you can see as we go through the process, it gets more simple. The truth is one sentence. Your intent is one word. Once you have that intent, that's the pivot point. Now you're going to circle back. You're going to go back through the chambers. So now we're going to go intent back to the truth chamber. And I like to see that you're holding your intent in one hand. So let's say you're holding love in one hand, and you're going to hold the truth in the other hand, or the many truths that you've seen. And when you go back to the truth chamber, I always like to have people like feel into, is there any other truth that you didn't see before? Or just let yourself rest into the truth that you see now. Intent and truth. You're going to hold both their hands, and guess where we're going next? You're going back into the story. Okay, but now you're going back into the story with new eyes, being curious about what's the story that I'm telling myself and what's my next step with the story. Now, there's no right way to be back in relationship with the story chamber. It may be you realize, oh my gosh, this is part of a much deeper story that I am going to need extra help unraveling. Or you might walk back in and just start laughing and realize this story doesn't hold anything. Like you realize it's just smoke and it all dissolves. Or sometimes you walk back into the story chamber, you enter back into the story chamber and you go, wow, okay, how else can I perceive this? How can I look at this from a different point of view? How can I rewrite the story, perhaps? Again, there's no right way. There's just your experience of being in relationship with the story chamber in a new way, connected to your intent and your truth. And then we always close the practice in the feeling chamber. What am I feeling? So we come back. What am I feeling now? There's also no right way to be in the feeling chamber. So some people go through the practice and they come to the feeling chamber and they feel elated. They feel hopeful for the first time. They feel excited. They feel grounded. And some people feel grief or despair because, not because of the story, but because they are honest with what's actually going on with their being. Okay? So just be with that again. So let me share a really brief story, and then we'll run through the practice, and then we'll open it up for questions. I'm sure you have lots of questions. So let's go through and make it more concrete now. Take it out of the concept and into the actual, how does this work? So I'll share a intimate story of an experience that I had years ago around my relationship with the warrior heart practice and how it helped me unwind something huge in my life. And I picked this story because it's a big one. So I had been for a couple of years, I'd been in a close relationship with a friend of mine, and we were navigating and talking with each other about possibly being in relationship. And we decided, let's be friends and talk and like spend time together. And so 2 years into this process, I decided I'm in. And he decided I'm out at the same time, which we didn't know about. We made those decisions separately, but we were both traveling to Mexico. I was teaching down there and he was coming to participate in a particular piece of the teaching. And so I was excited to see him and was like, okay, when he comes in, I'm going to tell him I'm in. So when we see each other, I say, I'm in, let's do this. And he says, I'm out, I don't want to do this. And then proceeds to fall in love with somebody in the course. Yay! So I get to teach over the next week, watching this human fall in love with somebody else. And things are complicated because years earlier, my husband had fallen in love with somebody else. So yay. So there's a good setup. The universe set me up really well, okay? So as I was navigating this, there was a particular point where I had a lot of emotion come up. And so I said to myself, sweetheart, sit down, do the practice, do your practice. So I sat myself down and I got really quiet and I asked myself first question, what are you feeling? What are you feeling? And the feeling sense was disappointment. I felt a very deep sense of disappointment. And as I just sat with the disappointment, didn't try to explain it, understand, I just sat with it, I realized this was old. It felt like a very old feeling sense that I've had before. Story. And the story, there's a lot in the story chamber. How could this be happening to me? I'm too old to date. How dare I, why am I dating again? I'm just going to make a fool of myself. All the good men are taken. I'm never going to be in a relationship again. I'm never going to meet someone like my ex-husband. I'm going to be alone. So all that content, all the story. And I just let myself sit with it. That's all the story. That's just what's going on in my head. Okay. Truth. What's true? And the first truth that dropped in is he gets to choose. The truth is I can't control his choice. He gets to choose. And as I sat with that, I didn't like it, but I felt this opening in my body of like, that's true. And I also felt there was a deeper truth. And so I waited. And this is the thing with the truth chamber. You got to give yourself the spaciousness to let the truth that you already know bubble up from your being. So the truth that I opened to was, the second truth was, I get to choose. And my heart opened. I get to choose. I get to be in relationship with myself and choose what I'm going to do next and how. Fourth chamber, what's my intent? My intent was unconditional love. I want to do this in a different way. I want to do this from a place of love for myself and for everyone involved. Back to the truth chamber. He gets to choose. I get to choose unconditional love. Stepping back to the story. And again, when you go back into the story, sometimes you wait to see how are you going to be in a different relationship with the story? So I got quiet and I waited and I held the truth and I held my intent. And what bubbled up from the depths of my being was, oh my gosh, the universe loves me so much. It's giving me a PhD in letting go. And I understood that in my life, I had been supported to get to this point where I could make a really radically different choice. And that I wasn't being punished. That was the old story. I'm getting punished. The new realization was, the truth was, I'm being invited to step up in a really big way, and I can do this. The feeling sense when I finished the process was disappointment. I still felt disappointed. But I didn't need to fix it, change it. And what happened is I just sat with the disappointed, loved myself, and it just dissipated over the next 3 or 4 days. Okay? So did that mean the situation was gone, was resolved? I didn't feel like everything was great. It was still hard. And I had a focus. I was able to hold on to myself and do it with grace and presence. Okay, even through a very difficult situation. So that was when I said, this works, this practice works. If I can get myself, and that was 15 minutes to unravel that. Okay. So really what you're doing is, what we're all doing is we're creating spaciousness to reframe, to relook, to drop into the really our big soul essence. But you have to go through the messiness to get there. You can't bypass. I found it doesn't work to bypass it. So this is why this process is so powerful. So let's work through the practice together. We're going to do it together. And I invite you for this to be the taste, and that you for then to take this to the Warrior Heart Practice sheet, which we'll give you in a moment, and to take it into your practice, into your meditation. Like this will be a taste to then continue to use a practice in your life. All right? So again, closing your eyes, coming back to the issue, struggle, confusion, pain, something that you're dealing with right now in relationship to self, to other, can be anything, to your health, to your spiritual path, to the world, to politics, to environment. It can be anything. Where's the place? Pick one thing, sweethearts, one thing. Okay? How do you feel? How do you feel? So when you think about that thing, whatever that thing is, how do you feel? So notice, do you feel hopeless? Do you feel scared? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel numb? Just notice. And then also, where do you feel it in your body? Where do you feel it in your body? Breathe into that area. Don't try and change or fix. Simply be with the feeling. If you notice a story coming in, just tell the story. I'll be with you in a moment. I'm practicing feeling right now. Let yourself feel. And you may not even have a name for the feeling. That's fine. Just breathe into the sensation. Beautiful. So knowing you can go back to sitting with the feeling, imagine now that you're going to step into the story chamber, thanking the feeling, and now step into the story chamber. And the question is, what's the story that I'm telling myself around this issue, problem, or challenge? What's the story? Again, let yourself look at the layers of the story, not just the surface. What's the story that you're telling yourself? And you can go later and write down more. This is our initial exploration. What's the story? What's underneath? Or what's a deeper story that you're telling yourself? Excavating and noticing the story, what your mind is telling you, or any old beliefs that are showing up. Good. And thanking the story chamber, knowing that you can always visit again if you want to go deeper. And stepping now into the truth chamber, making that commitment to step out of story into truth and asking yourself, what do I know is true? What do I know is true here? Opening to the wisdom of your body, start with I am breathing. What else is true? Staying out of story to keep stepping yourself into truth. What is true? One sentence with a period. One sentence, simple. What can you see as true? And now stepping into the intent chamber. What's your intent? What's one word, one quality you want to bring back to this situation that you're willing to commit to take action from? One word. What's the quality that you most want? And this isn't the quality you want somebody else to have. This is the quality you're going to embody. You're going to practice embodying. You might not know how. Find that intent. Let yourself feel that intent. Where do you feel that word, that quality in your body? Claim it. My intent is one word. Once you have that intent, stepping back into the truth chamber. What's my truth? Again, having that feeling sense, you're holding truth in one hand, you're holding your intent in the other hand. You have these new guides and allies now by your side. And you can now step back into the story chamber and look with new eyes. Look with new eyes. How else can you be in a relationship to this story? What else do you see that you didn't see before? So inviting the truth and your intent to help you see through new eyes, through the story in a different way. And finally, now stepping back into the feeling chamber, noticing, how do you feel? There's no right way to feel, just be honest. How do you feel now? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and be present here. So that was a very brief introduction into the Warrior Heart practice. We're going to share with you. So Justin, if you can share the Warrior Heart practice sheet. This is a sheet where you can write things down. So for some people, it's much more helpful than just thinking to write it down. We've had some people like physically move around in a space of now I'm in the story chamber and now I'm going to walk into the truth chamber. So you can also make it more embodied in that way. So this is a practice you don't do once and then you're done. It's a practice you can do over and over again, from the most simple issues in your life to the more complicated ones. Okay, so I'd like to now open up for questions. So any questions, any shares, I'd love to hear how was your experience with the practice, what questions came up, and as we're doing that, I'm just going to go stoke my fire because I'm cold. So I'm right here still.
And if there's any questions, people can just type them directly into the chat function, and HeatherAsh can answer them directly. And to our Facebook simulcast audience, if you guys have a question there, or you ladies have something you'd like to ask of the practice and our presenter, just type it into the Facebook chat and we'll bring it over to the Zoom so HeatherAsh can see.
Thanks, Justin. I am broadcasting live from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we had snow yesterday.
Well, we're learning too that when there's no questions, it's the best compliment to, people are just asking if they can get the sheet on Facebook. Are you comfortable with sharing it with them?
Totally fine.
We'll share that on Facebook with everyone.
Great.
But what I was saying is that usually when there's no questions, it's the best compliment to the teacher. So.
Where do I teach? Where do I teach? Kind of everywhere. So I am based out of Santa Fe, but I actually live on the road when we're allowed to live on the road, when there's not a pandemic happening. So I travel a lot, or I did travel a lot, and I teach a lot online. So we'll share at the end the website if you want to get more information about what else I'm up to. Katrina, can you speak more to the question around truth? What do you wish were true versus what is actually a fact? Oh, good question. Thank you, Katrina. So, okay, let's do politics. I'm not going to go deep into politics, but let's do politics because it's so up right now, right? And I was just talking to a friend of mine today who was like, I don't even want to get on Facebook because it's so divisive and, you know, nobody's having real conversations. There's just all this fighting happening. Okay, so what do we want? We want people to behave and be nice to each other and be compassionate to each other and not polarize. But is that what's true? What's true is that people are polarized, period. Okay, so often when we are debating about the truth, or we're thinking this should be true, is we're wanting somebody else to be different, or we're wanting the world to be different. So what's the facts? What's true versus what we wish was true? And that's heartbreaking sometimes. It's also liberating. It's also where your power is. Because when we stop struggling against it shouldn't be this way, and instead say, this is what is, what am I going to do about it? And that's where your intent comes in, because that's then the energetic of how you're going to engage. Okay. Yeah, does that help? Okay, good, wonderful. And we've done the Warrior Heart practice, really fascinating actually. We did the Warrior Heart practice a while ago as a group around, I think it was around the environment and around, you know, I had people pick what's your most like devastating reaction around the environment right now, or around things that are really hard for you. And then we did the practice. And what happens is that instead of just feeling awful about things that we don't like, or we don't know what to do, or feeling overwhelmed, or feeling pissed off, or feeling hurt, or feeling hopeless, like whatever comes up, that we're able to be with the feeling, then look at what the story is, but really then get to a place with the truth and the intent of what's my action. What can I do? And it clears all of the stuff away so that you're then purely in relationship with this vessel, this being, and what you can do. And this is what I love about the practice, is that for me, what we're doing is clearing out the noise so we can get back to the stillness, so we can be in touch with our own intuitive self, our own knowing, our own, this is what I'm here for, this is what I want to put my energy towards. And then there's no noise around it. It's just, I'm going to make this choice to take this action. And you have space to do that. And each of us, I believe, resonates with different places that we want to give, or places we realize, I can't. I don't have the energy capacity. And that's just true right now. Period. Okay. Can you use the warrior heart practice with issues you feel neutral around or have no preference around, or ones you're excited about versus confused and conflict? Yeah, you can play with it for sure. So in a place where you don't have a preference, it can help you, or where you feel rather neutral about it, it can help you just pick, I'm going to take action here, I'm not going to take action here, and just help you to settle into more clarity, even more clarity around your capacity or your desires. Hey, Becky, I've never got to meet my grandson. I feel rejection. My intent is purity. I feel time is running out. Pure love in my soul level. Hopeful? Nice. Yeah, so here's the thing. What's true? And sometimes the truth is heartbreaking. What's true is you may never meet your grandson. Period. But you know purity and you know love. And so if you can hold that just truth, you may not meet him. And the truth also is you may meet him. Period. You don't know. But feel into, what does purity mean for you? And exactly, pure love in a soul level. You can meet him on a soul level. You can interact at a soul level for sure, even if the physical doesn't happen. No doubt. And my belief, you can also, you don't have to be in a physical body. As an ancestor, once you pass, you're still in relationship with that child. Okay, I'm in deep relationship with my grandmother, who I never met. Okay, when we start to really connect with that big soul part of ourselves, we realize this physical form's temporary. What a gift. What a gift. And there's a lot, our capacity is much, much bigger than just this form. So I hope that, Becky, creates more a sense of hope and love and peace in your heart, that you are connected. And you can hold the prayer that you will physically connect, but you can let go of the despair or whatever else is the pain that you don't have to hold. And there might be disappointment. Yeah. Good. So it looks like we have time for about one more question or share. So if you have to share about an experience that you had walking through the practice, I'd love to hear it. And yes, thank you to the Tibet House US Menla membership community for helping make these Zoom sessions possible. And I'm so grateful to the Menla community for just the incredible work that you do. And it's really an honor to get to share on this platform and to connect with all of you that are joining live or watching the recordings later. Much gratitude. So any last questions or shares? Good. If something else comes up, you are so welcome to email us, and we'll share the email link as well. My whole team, I have an amazing team of beings. Thank you, Serena, including Serena that answer emails and support. You're so welcome, Marta. So in closing, I'll share one thing, which is that there's a reason I called it the Warrior Heart practice and not the Warrior Heart finish. Because so often we want to just be done with stuff and like have a simple practice that we can just, it's done, I'm over it. Okay, and truly learning to embody our heart, learning to settle into our being, learning to embrace all of ourselves and all of the complexity of life, especially now. Like, life is complex. There's a lot going on. And we can hold all of it. And we need to learn how. We need to deepen our own roots. And so the practice is about coming back into the heart over and over again and learning to untangle the places that the emotion, the feeling gets tangled up with the story. And we start pinging back and forth. When we're not paying attention, we can live just from a place of bouncing back and forth between the feeling and the story. And the story causes us to have more of the feeling, and the feeling causes us to tell more of the story. But when we have awareness, we then start to step into the curiosity of the truth and the intent. Doesn't mean the story and the feeling are ever going to go away. If you're in a physical body, you're going to have emotions, and you're going to make up stories. It's what the mind does. Okay, but you can be skillful in how you navigate with great love, your emotional body, your mind, your physical body, and start living from a place of truth and intent. So that intent is permeating every action that you take. Okay, beautiful. Thanks again so much for joining us. Thank you, Menla. Please feel free to email us or to check out the website, HeatherAshAmara.com. And just much, much love to each of you as we navigate these times. I hope that some of this presentation was helpful to you, and many, many blessings. And thanks so much to Menla again.
This video was brought to you in part through the generous support of the Tibet House US Menla membership community and viewers like you. To learn more about the benefits of Tibet House membership, please visit our websites at tibethouse.us or menla.org.